Dana Dobbie, September 30th, 1984, born in Oshawa, Ontario. Hometown is Fergus, Ontario, and nickname playing was Dobbs, Dober, Dobbie. Any one of those works. Currently assistant coach at Loyola University of Maryland.
Dana, it's really nice to have you here this day and get your story. When I think of women's lacrosse in Canada, yours is the first name that pops up to me. A lot of women began this game because there wasn't leagues for women to play in. They played with the boys. Yep. I know my oldest daughter played boys field lacrosse in high school till we got a girls field team going. Yep. Tell us about your beginning.
Yeah, so I have an older brother, Jason Dobbie, who played pretty much every sport. So I was that little sister that just chased him around. If he picked up a lacrosse stick, so did I. Picked up a hockey stick, so did I. And lacrosse is really in our Dobbie blood, as far as my grandfather and my aunts and my uncles, and especially my dad, just incredible ambassadors of the sport, coaches and players. So when I was learning to walk, I was learning how to throw and catch at the same time. So I picked up a lacrosse stick really, really early, played on my first travel team with my older brother when I was 4 for the Fergus Thistles in Ontario.
How old was he at the time?
He was 7 years old.
And you were 4.
Yeah, I think I spent most of the time on the bench, just pretending I was on the team. But I was a little advanced for the peanuts in our minor lacrosse association. So my dad was the coach and let me tag along, and that was my first rep team I ever got to play on.
That was 1988, I think?
Yes, yep.
You played with the boys for a while. When did you start playing on girls' teams? When were they available to you?
So I played for the Fergus minor box team from 4 until I was 14. And I was in the Fergus arena when a fax came through, and people aren't even going to know what a fax machine is, but a fax came through from the Allura Arena, which is the town right next to us, our rival town next to us. And there was a under-19 women's lacrosse field tryout release, just looking for any girls in Ontario that might be box players that have never played field lacrosse, if they could come out to this tryout and give it a go. And at first I was like, okay, so it's lacrosse outside, this is perfect, I know how to play it. And I showed up to my first ever field tryout with my box stick and my box gear, and I can still to this day remember Joanne Stanga and Roxanne Curtis looking at me, just laughing and shaking their heads we know this kid's gonna be good, but she doesn't have a clue what she's doing in field lacrosse. So I traded in my box stick for what felt like a tennis racket at the time, and that's when I knew the future for me in lacrosse was only going to be field lacrosse. Wow. Because there was no women's box lacrosse at that point. So I kind of put my gear bag away and grabbed some cleats, and the rest is pretty much history.
So how old were you roughly then?
So I tried out when I was in grade 8, so I would have been 13 turning 14.
For the U19
For the
team.
U19 team. And I don't know, Jim, still to this day, I think I would have been a good pick, but that was the first team I've actually ever been cut before, so it was heartbreaking. It was a year process of tryouts and, just trying to get yourself selected to that final 18 roster. And I didn't make the final 18. I guess I was a little bit young at the time, but it wasn't until 4 years later that I was then able to be the captain of the next U19 National Team to compete in Towson, Maryland.
Yeah, and isn't that though the case with many of the GOATs in all the sports where they get cut from their first team?
Still stings.
Still stings. But you did make it. You tried out for U19 team in 2001, and you made that team,
made it.
Right? The first competition you were in with that team, that was in Maryland, was it?
Yeah, in Towson, Maryland. So that was my first ever experience of playing internationally and seeing how many countries at the time had women's field lacrosse, and just going down to the US and playing for the first time and being like, this is wild here. And knowing that there was an opportunity to play collegiately, and kind of just seeing how wonderful of an opportunity that would actually be. You
were actually captain of that team, right?
I was.
Which is a real honor for that, and people saw that in you pretty early on, that you leave it all on the field, and you're a good leader by example.
By example, we had a phenomenal U19 team. We came away with the bronze medal, but to be honest, if you ask any of us on that team, we should have been in that gold medal game, competing for a gold medal, and just had a rough game against Australia in that semifinal that could have gone either way. So it's really easy to be a captain when you're surrounded by great teammates. So they made my job pretty easy. Your
career in the U.S. at Lacrosse, it isn't smooth in terms of being one school all 4 years or whatever.
No.
Talk about the whole process of finding a school down there that wanted you, and you know, all that whole thing for people.
Yeah. So it was, you know, when I'm playing on the U19 international team, we played a little bit in the States as far as like preparation and getting ready for final selections and things like that, but we never went down there thinking we were trying to earn a scholarship at all. And I went to Ohio University in my first year of university in 2003. And the biggest reason I was able to even earn that scholarship was there was several Canadian national team members at Ohio already. So Lindsay Hart, Linz Keys, Jen Cassidy were all competing at Ohio, and they told their coach, you need to give this kid a call. And to be honest, for me, come September 1st, Ohio University was the only school that reached out to me, and no one knew who this kid from Fergus, Ontario was, but thankfully I had teammates down in Ohio who did and vouched for me, and that was my first and only phone call. And then fast forward that a year later, we're competing at Towson University, playing in front of coaches from around the country. And then you get back from that championship and schools start calling and schools start reaching out, but I was already committed and signed to Ohio University, so I honored that commitment and went out there for 3 years.
3 years?
3 years, and in my third year, I unfortunately had 2 ankle surgeries that led to a redshirt year, so I had to get reconstruction on one ankle. 6 months later, reconstruction on the next ankle, and after that, it was kind of like I only have 2 more years left to play at this level, the highest level we had for women's lacrosse. There was no pro women's lacrosse. Internationally came around once every 4 years, so you know, I put my name into the transfer look and was lucky enough to land myself at the University of Maryland, which was a dream of mine since I was 14 years old and knew about women's field lacrosse. So I got the school I wanted with the coaches I had looked up to my whole life, and was able to play there for 2 years and have the best time of my life.
So you became a Terp.
Became a Terp. Fear the Terp.
Yeah, right. I've seen that. There. So you played for Jen Adams, which, you know, obviously was a huge step in your life, because you're still working with Jen Adams even to this day.
Yeah,
right?
I think any player of my time looked up to Jen Adams since, you know, we were 13, 14 years old. It was really the first ever women's lacrosse team that you saw in Sports Illustrated for the first time. You saw them TV interviews. You know, there was no internet, so we couldn't stream them, we couldn't follow them on Instagram, but every female lacrosse player and men's lacrosse player for that matter knew who Jen Adams was, and she was playing the game in a way you had never seen a girl play lacrosse before, and just her competitiveness. She couldn't lose a game even if she tried. So to be able to play for her and still to this day learn from her every single day is something that was super, super special to me.
You actually were a Tewaaraton Award finalist, which is
crazy.
Not an easy thing to do. And where they have like 5 people yet?
5 people, yeah.
Out of the whole country. And had there been a Canadian that had ever made it that far before?
I think there'll probably be some legacy, maybe Tewaaraton Award selections for the players that played before the Tewaaraton even existed. Hopefully we'll see some Canadians named to that, but I was the first ever named to the actual Tewaaraton Award ceremony.
Wow, that must have been quite an honor.
It's pretty special.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. And 2009 was your first year playing for the national team at the senior level?
Yeah.
And how did that work, and how did that go?
Yes, so in 2005 would have been my first ever senior national team selection, but I was out with my 2 ankle surgeries, so couldn't play.
Okay.
so missed that, was able to watch Australia do what no one has ever seen before and take down the USA with such a large margin of scoring. That was insane. I think it was like 14-7 was the final game. So I was able to watch that. I would have loved to have been at the World Championship playing, but that was a pretty cool experience. And then fast forward to 2009, that was my first ever senior campaign, and I was on the younger side of that national team, which is a little different to what I'm experiencing now. And I just had incredible older teammates like Jen Johnson, Lindsay Hart, Linz Keys, really show me what it meant to play for Canada and how to not only be a great player, but to be an even better teammate.
So I should ask you about your injury. Did you ever at any point think you might not be able to play again during that?
I don't think that was ever like a question. It was more just you were thinking about everything you were missing out on. So you didn't really have time to think about what maybe you weren't going to be able to do in the future. But I had an incredible surgeon. He fixed me up pretty good. And a year later, I'm out running around on the University of Maryland's turf, and it was like nothing had ever happened.
That's unbelievable, huh?
Very lucky.
Wow. You picked the right person to do the surgery. Yeah, very good. That team, 2009, won bronze, and you were selected the all-world team.
Yeah.
Which is huge to be, what do they pick, 11 or 12 women?
Something like that,
Yeah,
not many.
women. That's a real honor.
And that was a big world championship for us because prior to that, I don't know how long it had been where we'd gone to world championships and not medaled at the senior level. And I'm very fortunate that I've never not medaled at a senior world championship. So that was bronze, and that was a huge step for us and our program. And some of those women that I played with, that was the only medal that they had won at a senior world championship. And then fast forward 4 years later, it was gold medal or bust from then on out. And we've been able to compete in gold medals ever since.
Really, winning that game to go into the gold medal game was pretty
everything.
Well. Yeah, I think that was enough for everybody to take that step, and then it took the following 4 years later, where you're actually able to really shut down the distance between the U.S. and you, and really made it competitive that next time.
And when you think about just the participation registration between USA and how many thousands of players come from that country playing lacrosse to Canada, where our numbers are so much smaller just from our population. So the difference between that, technically Canada should never compete against the USA in women's lacrosse because of those mass numbers. And that's just the Canadian way. We're small in numbers, but we're super mighty, and it's only going to be a matter of time before Canada can upset the US at a field lacrosse level. And our junior team with Erica Evans and Meg Kinna, Selena Lasota, they were able to do that at a junior world championship, and I think in Scotland. And I think that kind of gave us all a little bit of a kick in our butts, saying if the junior team can do it, the senior team needs to pick things up too. So I credit a lot of our success from the senior level to that junior team, just showing us how it's done. And that was a huge motivator for all of us. I'll never forget that. I was streaming it on my phone at the Jersey Shore. I was recruiting, and I woke up super early to watch the game, and I was losing it. I was losing it in celebration. I felt like I was there with them, and I've never been more proud of a national team than I was with that group. Yeah, what a group too. And the future of this game is in good hands. It's a good time. It's a good time to play women's lacrosse for sure. It's a good time, and now it may be a good time to start playing women's box lacrosse as well, right? And talk a little bit about that upcoming championship in Utica. You're hoping to play for Canada. You're just coming from a tryout today. Yeah, fingers and toes crossed. We'll make that final selection. We had so many women come to that open tryout from all over Canada. Just so excited, finally the opportunity to compete in box lacrosse for their province, for their town, and to represent Canada at that world championship level. And box lacrosse is very different to field lacrosse. So we have some incredible box lacrosse athletes that over the years never got a chance to wear a Canada jersey, where on the men's side they get to wear their jersey in box and they're wearing the jersey in field. And unfortunately, my whole career until now has only been, if you want to wear the jersey, it's in field lacrosse. So for us to have this opportunity is one that we are so proud to have. And at the same time, honestly, Jim, just so sad that we've missed out on all of these years not being able to represent Canada in the way that the men have. So this is more than just a game for us in Utica this September. And we're not only playing for Canada or playing for ourselves, but we're playing for those women that never got the chance to play. And that's more meaningful than a win or a loss.
Yeah, that's going to be really something down in the heart of Mohawk territory.
Absolutely.
playing box lacrosse.
You know, we talked about the future of lacrosse and the future of women's lacrosse. This box lacrosse team, there's 48 of us. We represent almost every province and territory across Canada, from the age of 15 to, I think we had people over 40 in that first tryout. And this is the hardest team to make that we've ever seen in Canada women's lacrosse.
Really?
And wow. I think you could flip a coin and you could take half of those players to make that 23 roster and that team would be incredible. So we made the coach's job extremely, extremely difficult, but I'm more proud about where we are as far as how difficult that team is to make, because in previous years it was pretty easy to pick your top 18 players.
Sure.
And it was mostly Ontario with a little bit sprinkle of West Coast. And now we're even 50-50 and it's going to be a true national team.
But the latest version is what's coming up for the Olympics, and the first World Game Sixes tournament was in 2022. And you were a gold medal winner there and a captain there. And talk about that experience with the new game that's going to be in the Olympic Sixes. It
was such an amazing moment for us to be able to go to the World Games in Alabama, USA, to play in front of the IOC committee. And our job was to put on a show. So that committee went away from that World Games and are saying lacrosse has to be included in the LA 2028 Summer Games. So we wanted to win.
You helped sell this.
Yeah, we wanted to win, but what we wanted even more was to win for lacrosse and to be able to get lacrosse athletes on an Olympic podium in 28 and hopefully Canadian Olympic athletes on that podium wearing a gold medal. So that motivation and that drive coming off of a Towson World Championship in field, I think we had like 2 days to fly to Alabama and then compete into the World Games where you're banged up, you're tired, you're exhausted, but we just had such an incredible team for that sixes group, and we were ready to do whatever we needed to do to get a gold medal. We're sick of the silver medals. We just won that and we wanted to trade that in for gold, and it was a special team and a special moment.
Wow.
And that's definitely probably my biggest lacrosse highlight.
I had forgotten how close those two events were in time, like to get,
It was insane.
That must have been.
And Towson, Maryland was like, we were playing in 40-degree
I was there for
humidity,
that.
yep. And then fly to Alabama where it's even hotter than you can imagine. So I think we were dehydrated for like 2 weeks straight.
What a career, right? You really started out in 1997, not making it.
Getting your heart broken.
but using that as motivation.
Absolutely.
You know, and look at what this is. Look what you've seen and done with this. And now there's over 100 countries playing this game worldwide. More and more women's teams coming on board all the time with this. And, you know, could you have imagined this back in the 1990s? You know?
I don't think so. I know when I first started playing lacrosse, I was also a big hockey player. And I was going to be the next Wayne Gretzky, and I was going to play in the NHL. And, you know, I think from an early age, I had a different kind of dream that I was going to chase. And I can remember going to that first tryout that I got cut from and knowing I'm only going to play hockey for a couple more years, but lacrosse is going to be my future. And not only do I love the sport, I mean, when you think about lacrosse, it's a gift. The Haudenosaunee gifted the game of lacrosse. And you have this spiritual connection while you're playing, and you don't get that in any other sport. So once I got a taste of that, I knew I was never going to put my stick down ever again, and I'm just so thankful to the sport for the people, to the opportunities, to the memories. And I know now as a ambassador, my job is to give back, and I don't think I could give back as much as I received.
You helped develop what Sixes was going to be. So this process, we need to get this down for posterity.
I can remember the years.
Okay, so a group of people from different countries met in a room, basically.
A lot
at one point, you know, and what was proposed? Like, how did the whole process work?
Yeah, so we were part of a group called the Blue Skies Working Group, and we had men and women administrators, coaches. I was athlete representative that was able to talk about box lacrosse and field lacrosse as an athlete to really push different rules and different strategies towards a discipline that we were going to be able to showcase in front of the IOC to make sure that when they saw it, they were going to pick lacrosse to be one of the newest sports into the LA Games.
Okay,
so
was this group all Canadian?
No.
So what countries kind of were involved?
We had to have countries represented from all regions. So making sure that we had people from, you know, your European countries, your North American countries, your Asian countries. So making sure that every region within international lacrosse was represented and did have a voice within that room. It was a small group of people that did a lot of work at random hours in the day and random hours early in the morning on Zooms, just making sure that we ironed out the style, ironed out the rules, and that we were able to present something that athletes were going to have a great time playing and spectators would want to watch more. So the way we came up with Sixes was creating a hybrid of lacrosse from the box version and the field version, and taking the best from both of those worlds and creating a power sport of sixes. And we've seen it in rugby with the rugby sevens. Yes. So we had a little bit of an example and a template from that. And I get asked all the time, why isn't it just box lacrosse? Why isn't box lacrosse in the Olympics? And I think people didn't realize that girls never had the opportunity to compete internationally in box lacrosse. So it wasn't even a possibility. So creating this hybrid and making the fastest game on 2 feet even faster, and taking our athletes and pushing them faster, more endurance, more strength, better IQ, is really how we came to the sport of sixes. And we're all really proud of it. And we know athletes love to play it. It's easy to play, it's easy to learn, but it's going to be really hard to win that gold medal.
So let's walk through some of the basic differences between sixes and the other versions of the game.
Yep.
First of all, the dimensions of the field are the dimensions of a rink,
yep.
right? So that was kept.
Yep.
But no boards.
But no boards.
No boards.
We had a few strong stipulations that we had to have ironed out as far as what we couldn't have in lacrosse for lacrosse sixes. So we needed to play in a smaller space so that we could fit in the Olympic Village, to be able to put our field in an area in the Olympics where it wouldn't have to be building a whole new field or a whole new stadium. So that was a huge part.
So that determined
how big the field was going to be. We had to have a small roster. A lot of team sports don't actually get accepted as new sports into the Olympics. So you'll see breakdancing, or you'll see mountain climbing and racing. They're all individual sports. They're not team sports.
Yeah.
So a roster of 18 or 23 was going to be impossible. That's 23 medals, 23 players in beds in the Olympic Village. That's more food.
Times how many countries.
Times how many countries.
Yeah.
So we were like, what is the number? What number do we need to hit?
So
and the number was 12.
12. So are 6 on the field including the goalie?
Correct.
Yeah, 6 including the
yep.
goalie.
And only 2 coaches. So lacrosse is not used to only having 2 coaches. So you are a small team, a tight-knit team. And then the hardest part that we were challenged with was, how can we create sixes lacrosse that men's lacrosse doesn't look different to women's lacrosse? Because anyone who knows box and field men's does not look like women's field.
Yeah.
And we made sure that all the rules for both men's and women's were the same, but obviously there's equipment differences. And I'm going to be honest with you, Jim, the only reason there's equipment differences is because a lot of countries feel like women don't want to have that contact within their style of play. and that it's too expensive to buy equipment for women. Not too expensive to buy equipment for men, but apparently it's too expensive to buy equipment for women.
Do you think that's going to change someday?
Absolutely.
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 Okay, you heard it here.
You heard it here first. You heard it here first. So the rules are as close as we can get. The style and the strategy is exactly the same, I would say. And the coolest part about sixes to me is you can play your style that best suits your country. So if you're a fast country like Japan, they can play a super fast transitional style of lacrosse because they have 12 top players within the world. You pull that to a 23-person roster, the advantage goes to the countries like Canada, USA, Australia, England, tougher for Japan to bridge that gap with more athletes. But when you talk about a small roster, now you're adding new countries that can compete 12v12.
We've talked about a few aspects of the game. What about the clock? How does the clock work?
Yeah, so there's a couple different things within the clock. So the biggest part of that is we had to have our game completed within 60 minutes. So how do you get a lacrosse game to be finished in 60 minutes with stop time? So we went 4 quarters, 8 minutes a quarter, because that takes us to 32 minutes. You only have 12 players on the field. You can't really play much longer than 32 minutes. So the time goes quick, the 8 minutes quarters, breaks between the quarters, a break at halftime. And then we kept the 30-second shot clock from box lacrosse to make that fast-paced style of lacrosse that spectators want to see and lacrosse players want to play. But something that's really cool about sixes is in box you miss the net, it goes off the boards. In field you miss the net, it's the closest one to the ball. But in sixes, if you miss the net, possession's going the opposite way. So we're constantly having the ball in transition and the ball in play.
And there's no draws, right? It goes right.
We kept the tradition of a face-off and a draw control to start each quarter.
Oh, okay.
But because the time is running and it's not stop time, there is no time to waste to go back to a face-off or to go back to a draw. So if a goal goes in, the goalie's picking it up and the ball's going the other way. And where we found that concept is we're taking it right from basketball, one of the most favorited sports across the world. Everybody's watching basketball, and that's an easy rule for people to understand.
And it seems like it's going to have a great use for expanding the game.
We really wanted to create a discipline that you could drop in a country that has never seen or played lacrosse, and you could show them quickly and easily, and they could just pick it up and play. So there is a big soccer influence, there is a big basketball influence, because those are such popular sports around the whole world. So taking rules from those games and the setup from those games and allowing the kids to just pick up sticks and learn how to play, you can do that in sixes, where it's very difficult to teach and show a box game or a field game. There's just so many nuances that are specific to lacrosse that other countries would not be able to understand at all. So in women's lacrosse, shooting space, 3 seconds, people don't get it, they don't understand it. So that was a big piece of our puzzle that we needed to fix with sixes. And eliminating shooting space and 3 seconds freaked a lot of people out, but it allows the game to be played hard and fast and to showcase a defensive style of women's lacrosse that we haven't been able to see before.
So in the women's game in sixes, if there's a woman standing between you and the net, you can shoot.
You can shoot. You can shoot.
You can shoot.
If you hit them above the knees, you're out of that game entirely.
Oh.
So
okay.
You're penalized.
The
penalty is not worth that shot. So it's important just from the beginning to really teach those safety.
It's like self-regulated by that rule.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
So when in doubt,
smart.
worm burner. But if you are a player that can shoot around that defender and you have the skill to do it, that shot can go.
Huh. Do you see anything else at this early stage, because it is early, that you think might get tweaked in the long run?
So it's been probably 4 years of tweaking the rules. And one thing we always hear from, especially other countries, but even in North America, is we change the rules so often that it's like hard to get in a flow. But if you look at any professional sport, they're constantly changing the rules to make it more fan friendly, to add the player safety, to make it more exciting for the players and the fans. So I think although it's difficult for lacrosse because we've been pretty stuck in our ways for a really long time, Sixes has allowed us to kind of catch up with the rest of the world and other sports, to be more innovative, to be more creative, to be more dynamic. And I think we're going to continue to see that evolution continue so that we can make sure that lacrosse is the best sport in the world.
You mentioned one word which gets me going in another direction with you, and that's pro.
Yeah.
And you've played pro women's lacrosse. Explain to those who don't know about the pro league that exists and what you've been doing in it, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so we started, our first pro league was called the UWLX, and we got paid $200 a game to play, which was crazy to me. I would have paid $200 to even just play in that game. But it was 4 professional teams. We competed in the regular season, had playoffs, had a championship, and it really was at that time the best of the best coming together, traveling around the country. And we did something that was brilliant, I think. We played at youth lacrosse tournaments. So every game, the game was full of fans and parents, and you're given autographs for an hour after the game. So we did that. It transitioned into the WPLL, which was just a little bit more of a professional style within that league. We were paid more to play. And now you're seeing Athletes Unlimited, where these pro women's lacrosse players are on TV every week. They've got big sponsorships from their apparel and equipment sponsors, and they're getting paid a lot of money to play lacrosse for 5 weeks. So it went from no pay and just enjoying your post-college league that you played in to women's professional lacrosse, where you see a player in college that you love, and then you get to follow their career through a professional level as well.
So in the early days when you were playing at youth tournaments, did they pay to buy tickets to go in, or did you just let them in and the sponsorship paid?
Yep, we had, you could purchase tickets to go to the game, and then in some tournaments that ticket was included into their tournament fee too.
Oh, okay, that's
so
smart.
it was smart, really smart.
And what were some of the teams that you played with? What were the names of?
So I had played for the Baltimore Brave for both of those years that I played in the UWLX, and then also in the WPLL. It just turned into, instead of Baltimore, we were just Brave.
Okay.
So we went away from playing for a city and more just playing for that team name. So it was a little different.
Now, like in the PLL, they would have a different lacrosse event that they would create in a city. Is that the same kind of concept?
Yep, same concept.
Where you go and play at a particular site.
Yep.
And all the teams show up.
All the teams show up. Yep.
And is that the way it's going now with that?
I think maybe, like, honestly, the WPLL showed the PLL a little bit of a creative way to do professional lacrosse, because they had just been playing their regular field pro schedule and losing out in an audience because all the lacrosse players, they're playing in tournaments too. Yeah. So I think we showed a little bit of a creative way to get fans in the stands. Instead of pulling them from the tournament to somewhere else, go to where the fans are. And I think we're going to see that from the PLL maybe in the future.
And you know, you're still a player, active player, and you will be.
I'm hanging on, Jim.
Yeah, but you know, I want to talk about some things in a minute on that. But you're becoming a leader in we'll call it admin almost. You know, like another step in your involvement in the game, and you know, setting direction for Sixes, being on different World Lacrosse first ever Athletes Commission Vice Chair.
Yeah.
And what was involved in that job?
Yeah, so it was interesting. We had the women's international group, and then we had the men's international group, and that came together for World Lacrosse and combined the men's and the women's disciplines under one organization. In order to be an Olympic sport, you have to have equal opportunity for your men's and women's athletes. And a huge part of that is to have an athletes commission. So we had 3 men and 3 women from different regions that represented this athlete commission. And then we were voted a chair and a vice chair, 1 man, 1 woman, to sit on the World Lacrosse board to actually have a vote to make decisions for the future of the sport and what's happening currently within the sport. And being a part of that athletes commission, I was able to really push towards that equal opportunity to play and compete. And it was so surprising to me how shocked people were when I said, if we're truly athlete-centered and athlete-focused and we want equal opportunity, we need a women's box lacrosse world championship. At that time, the male lacrosse players could compete in 2 different world championships. Right. At the same time, we could only compete for 1. So that's double opportunity to our 1. And so it took a big committee of incredible people from all over the world to make this women's box lacrosse a reality. And unfortunately, we had to prove to the board of World Lacrosse that girls and women wanted to play box lacrosse and that it was worth the investment on allowing us to have the first ever world championship in Utica in 2024.
What are some of the countries that'll be there playing in the first ever women's?
Yes, we're going to have Canada, USA, Haudenosaunee, Australia. I believe we have Ireland, Czech Republic, and we're up to 10 countries.
Wow.
We actually had more countries that wanted to put teams in, and World Lacrosse said there wasn't enough space or time to add more countries. But they didn't eliminate how many men's that they were going to have. They only eliminated how many women's they could have. So hopefully we'll see that change in the next world.
In the next worlds.
In the next worlds.
And what is that, like 24 teams come for the men's or something like that, or is it more than that?
They might have a few more.
32 or something.
What is what we're so proud of as a working group for women's box lacrosse is the men's first ever world championship had 4 teams. The women's first ever world championship for box has 10 teams. Yeah. So when they told us women don't play box lacrosse, I think we proved everybody wrong by not only having 4, but having 10 national teams ready to compete.
I want to get back, because we haven't even touched on this, but what I've always been amazed watching you, Dana, over the years play, you have as good a lacrosse stick in terms of stick handling as anybody I've ever seen.
That's nice to see you, Jim.
You're a magician. And where does that come from? Like that, not just playing the game and being good at the game, but you put on a magic show with the stick.
Oh, thank you. I grew up in the backyard, like I said, with my brother, and just trying to do everything he did. So a big part of his game was behind the backs and around the worlds and Twizzlers and fakes. And it probably helped that I didn't have the fastest feet, which meant I had to have a little bit of a faster hand than my opponent. But I think when I transitioned from box lacrosse to field lacrosse, everybody said, well, you can't do any of that stuff because you don't have a box stick. And I was really determined in the backyard to figure out, how can I toe drag with my field stick? How can I rip a behind the back with no pocket? How can I throw a huge fake or an around the world? And I think I just refused to give up on the fact that you can't do what you can with a box stick with a field stick, and just spent the time figuring it out. But I just think that's the best part. It's the creator's game, and making sure that you have a creative style to your flow, I think really helps you connect with everything, the spiritual side of the sport.
Just like a great soccer player, sometimes it's a little tap of the ball in an open space that opens the whole can of worms against the other team. It gets everything going, and having the, I'll call it genius, to see what this little thing can do to open it wide open. You seem to have that ability too, Dana. I've seen you do it with a little flip here or there. All of a sudden, a break comes out of that 60 yards down the field. And it's like you kind of know what the right little play is to make at the right time. And that's what's so much fun about watching you play is that mental aspect, and knowing, it's not like a grandiose move or anything. Right. It's just the right move at the right time.
Yeah, a little touch. Yes. And I grew up playing, my parents put me in when I was 4, soccer, t-ball, T-ball was a bore, but you know, I'm still out there trying to be a little slugger. And then lacrosse, and then I played hockey in the winter. In high school, I played rugby and badminton, and being able to play all those different sports, I think when you get to an age where you have to focus on just one, all those other little sports all come together. It's like an ice hockey, a lead pass, or a little tap off the boards, little things like that from different sports, even basketball, like the one-touch passes or the alley-oops. You just play as much as you can when you're little, and then it becomes a time when you're an adult where you're not thinking about anything. You're able just to read and react and make a little play that, like you said, can create a big spark.
Hey, what do you have there, Dana?
Yeah, so this is my first ever national team jersey.
Really?
And this was before I was 27. I was actually 17. And then when I went through my ankle surgeries and transferred to the University of Maryland, 17 was taken, and the only 7 that was available was 27. So this is pre-27 era. And no Canada on the front of the jersey, which I think is so funny. But when we flip it over, we get that little flash right there. And this is, you know, 2 years of hard work. This is the little medal that we get here. So this is that bronze medal. And then all your little pins from doing your little handshake at the end of the game and exchanging your pins. So we gave them some maple syrup, and we got some pins in return.
Always, you know, always teaching them a lesson.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah. So that was the beginning, huh?
That was the beginning, the first ever.
Yeah.
And then we talked about like my most memorable moment. So you fast forward that from 2003 to 2022 to our first ever gold medal. And then here's our sixes.
This is in Alabama.
This is Alabama.
Yeah.
So we got our sixes logo right here.
Wow.
And now we got Canada on the front.
Wow.
And then our Canada on the back.
Wow, that's beautiful.
The mesh that we got to cut down. So it's actually still white because it's only 2 years old. Got to cut that down for the first time.
Everybody's got a piece of that?
Everyone's got a piece of that.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the
look at that.
Now that's a medal right there.
Holy.
So I love to look at these two, and you can kind of see how it started and how it's going right here. Wow. So pretty special. Feel how heavy that thing is.
Yeah, that's got some substance.
That's better than a bronze right there.
Alabama. That is cool. World Games. Yeah.
So this is the
oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
the Ohio University with like one of the original before Gate Lacrosse. This was the Dobbie Lacrosse, so it was the same design by, I think the Gate brothers were still designing this before they came up with Gate Lacrosse. But
what do you call that trick?
Ooh, what is that one?
It's you spin it in the air, right, from one side to the other, and then.
I didn't make this trick up, so I don't know what maybe over the rainbow.
Oh yeah.
This is the over the rainbow.
Wow, look at that.
I need a stick to kind of show you what that looks like live. So that's just like I'm so proud of, you know, getting that first call at Ohio University and getting the opportunity to go and play collegiately and earn a scholarship. So, but after 3 years, it was nice to put on this jersey.
And head to Maryland, the Terps.
The Terps. And then 17's gone, and then this is where 27 comes into play.
Okay, wow.
Honestly, I don't know how I fit into this uniform when you look at it now.
Wow.
But this is just like, you know, when you're a little kid. I can remember I cut out from Sports Illustrated. It was a University of Maryland like team photo and a big write-up on Jen Adams. And I cut out the team photo and I pinned it on my pin board. And I just would have loved to have, you know, been able to be a Terp. And I loved my time at Ohio, but to then have that opportunity to transfer and get to put this jersey on was just kind of like how important it is to, you know, have those dreams and to pin them up and to never give up on those dreams, because you don't know what opportunity is going to come up.
And you can make a bad situation turn into a positive if you treat it right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I always look at it, there's no bad choice, but you can always make it a great choice, and kind of, you know, your perspective and the way you want to go or how you want to reframe something can turn, you know, what might have been a crappy moment into a dream come true. You just don't know.
Wow, wow.
right, what else do we
Neat.
got?
What do we got? This is great.
Oh, this
This
cool.
is great. Oh, pro.
Yeah, so we go into our pro jerseys.
The Brave.
So this is the Baltimore Brave jersey.
Nice.
So you can see how the jerseys are getting a little nicer and nicer as we go through the years. So our Brave team actually won the pro championship, and we were like a mixed team playing against the New York Fight, which were like all USA players. I think they had 5 Tewaaraton winners on their team. And in the championship game, it came down to like the final 20 seconds, and we were able to pull out the championship.
Wow. Wow.
And my, I'll save that for a second. But my biggest goal for professional lacrosse is to have one professional league and it not be professional women's or professional men's. But you look at currently, we have the PLL,
Yes.
the Pro Lacrosse League, the Professional Lacrosse League, and it doesn't say men's professional, it doesn't say women's professional. So my goal for the sport of lacrosse is to be able to go to a PLL game and buy a ticket to see women play and buy a ticket to see men play. And for kids not to know the difference outside of being a professional lacrosse player. And so we've started that with playing with the Unleashed that is partnered with the PLL, and we played in a sixes all-star game with the PLL this past winter. And we were able to, get all our new jerseys and to play at the PLL venue, to have the camera crew and to have the commentators. And it was probably, what I think is going to be the future of professional lacrosse in a couple years.
Wow. Wow. Dana, show us the medal that you got for winning the pro championship.
Yeah, so this medal is pretty special to us as a team. We were kind of like a little bit of the team of misfits, and we played the New York Fight, which was loaded with USA National Team players, current and former. I think they had over 5 Tewaaraton winners on that team. So we were definitely the underdogs. Everyone thought Taylor Cummings and Kayla Traynor were going to win that championship. But the Brave came to play. I think we won in the final 20 seconds of the game. And
who scored the winning goal? You remember? Didn't matter.
I think it didn't matter, but I'm going to go with Amanda Johansson. I think she had a nice little quick stick on a cross-crease pass from Brooke Griffin. I'm going to try to say, if my memory is good, that was the play of the game. Yeah. But just again, like an awesome memory from the professional career. And this is something I wish I could still be doing, but busy with World Lacrosse and Box Lacrosse and spending my time kind of doing other things. But playing pro was such a great opportunity.
And coaching at Loyola.
Those kids will keep you busy.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And so, Dana, we've covered a lot, from when you first started out in your brother's footsteps and to now competing at the highest levels and representing Canada and being a leader of the Canadian team and, working your way towards being a GOAT.
I always say, when people call me a GOAT, because I don't believe it at all, I'm like the grandma of all time. That's kind of where I put myself in. I started as the youngest, and I'm going out as the oldest, but, it's definitely not a term I'm super comfortable with, but, hopefully if I can win a gold medal in Utica with my teammates with Team Canada for the first ever, maybe I'll be able to hear that, but I just need another gold medal under my belt to take that one.
All right. So is there anything you want to add to, again, this is for posterity, this interview, and anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to add before we close up? Yeah,
I just think I'm so grateful and thankful to the Haudenosaunee people for gifting us this sport of lacrosse, and I'm going to continue to do everything I can as an ambassador of the sport to give back more than I've received. But for all the future lacrosse players, you picked the right sport. There's no better people and there's no better game for you to spend your whole life competing, watching, and motivating that next generation. So I'm so excited to see what Canada does in the future. I think it's going to have a lot of golden moments.
Thanks very much, Dana.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jim.